Toto Wolff has been very, very quiet, and you will not see a lot of this in the F1 media or anybody covering F1. But there is a secret backroom door deal going right now between Mercedes and Toto Wolff and their sister team Williams. He is trying his damnedest to get Mick Schumacher into Logan Sargeant's seat. Why is that? First of all, Toto Wolff was obsessed with Michael Schumacher. He considers him to be the most important figure in Formula One history. He considered him as an idol when Toto Wolff started racing when he was younger, and it was someone he always aspired to be. So he has some allegiance due to that. He's not just an autonomous robot with no feelings and emotions and everything's about money, but we will get to that part later on. But that is a big part. He wants to help out Mick Schumacher. The other part is Toto Wolff likes to have control over every single thing in Formula One. Christian Horner pointed this out in an interview recently. He said, Toto Wolff doesn't only not get along with him because he's his main competitor and a team that can actually beat him one-on-one. It's because Toto Wolff doesn't have his hand in the pocket of Red Bull. Toto Wolff has so much to do with so many teams. Obviously Mercedes, Williams, Aston Martin. He's gained relationships with people at Ferrari. He's very instrumental with Valtteri Bottas, where he somehow is manager and got him a deal with Alfa Romeo, even though that should not be allowed because in boxing you can't be the promoter and the manager and running multiple teams. There's just too many, situations where things are crossing over and it's just not good, but somehow it's allowed in Formula One. There is a backroom deal. He's trying to put Mick Schumacher. He's trying to get rid of Logan Sargeant. It will only help if Logan Sargeant continues not to get results. And on top of that, Mick Schumacher would be good for Formula One because he still has that name. And on top of it, if you really think about it, and I have to defend Mick Schumacher to this point, he was a very talented driver. I don't know who's managing him. I wish he had Jos Verstappen behind him because he seems to know how to manage people. Mick Schumacher was doing super well at Haas. When they had a car that was able to fight for actual points, he was out-racing Kevin Magnussen so many times. He beat him during most races last season. And when they had a car that could actually fight like you did see in Austria, he was able to get points. This kid is actually talented. It's not all just a name. I think he's actually probably a better driver than Logan Sargeant and a lot of guys in Formula One, but he was not managed well. He should have been slid into that Alfa Romeo seat. The only problem is that Alfa Romeo has Zhou Guanyu, who is a Chinese driver. China is a huge superpower. They do have a Formula One race that still means a lot of things. But think about this on the other side for Logan Sargeant. America is this ever-budding, huge market that Formula One was never able to tap into. When I was younger, nobody knew what Formula One was. They had no clue. Now, because of Drive to Survive and the growing popularity of Formula One in America, on top of having a race in Austin, on top of having a race in Miami, and now a third race in Las Vegas, there's going to be 3 races in one country. No other country on the grid has 3 races, okay? Germany used to have the European Grand Prix, Hockenheim, and sometimes like the Nürburgring because Michael Schumacher was so big and famous. It was such a huge market to tap into. Now, Logan Sargeant is the only American driver, so this is going to be a thing he's going to have to fight against. And on top of it, Logan Sargeant doesn't just have the backing of nobody. His uncle is a multi-billionaire freight forwarder and shipper of huge goods across the world internationally. And he has a son who's also a driver, but not in Formula One, so that definitely helps. And on a trip I went to in Miami recently, it seems like Logan Sargeant was on the poster of everything. If anybody can comment down, I've seen more posters of Logan Sargeant in America. I've never seen any Formula One drivers on posters in America. I saw a Logan Sargeant poster everywhere for Michelob Ultra. He was like looking at me like every single street I went on to. So they're really trying to push him to be a big part of getting America into Formula One after all the fans have been showing up to all these races. But Toto Wolff exerts so much power, and he's trying to make sure the media doesn't talk about this. In fact, he has a lot of good relationships with media outlets in Formula One, so you won't see them reporting on this as much because he totally has control over so many things, okay? Christian Horner is about Christian Horner. Helmut Marko is about Helmut Marko and the Red Bull arena. There is nobody who is more skilled diplomatically, financially, personally than Toto Wolff is. He's always on the prowl, talking to every single person from every single team, getting people to put out releases, to go on board with all of his ideas and conspiracies, even the way he states things, like when Max won, oh, it's like a F1 car facing all F2 cars. He wants to make the regulations change. He wants Dominicali to come on his side. That's the biggest person he hasn't been able to flip, who said, no, we're not going to change everything so Red Bull doesn't dominate anymore. But trust me, if he can get Mick Schumacher over to Williams, that will not only be important to have him at his sister team, it will be somebody who could be beneficial to the way his drivers, go throughout the race, because Williams is getting better and better. And if they become a midfield team where you need, relationships like AlphaTauri has with Red Bull, where it's like, hey, just move over, we're not even going to fight, that will only increase Mercedes' chances of having better races and eventually be able to fight for the championships again. Total Wolff is about controlling every single aspect of Formula One so he can win constantly. And this is another thing you're going to see. And I think one of two things will happen. He'll be able to put in Mick Schumacher either at Alfa Romeo if Zhou Guanyu isn't able to stabilize his career there and have the influence of being Chinese in an ever-growing Chinese market and China being a superpower. Or does he try and go over to Logan Sargeant, even though America is trying to keep relevance of Formula One and it's just expanding and growing, and the only thing that can help that and move it towards even more popular in America is still having an American driver. We'll have to see, but trust me, he's doing everything in his power to get Mick Schumacher back in Formula One, and you will not be hearing this from anybody else because it's been buried deep in all of the media about Formula One recently.